welcome to the Change Seminar. Today we have Bratati Ghosh, who is leading the nonprofit, the Seattle-based nonprofit Turn the Bus, which works with collaborators in Bihar, India, for smartphone applications for educational purposes. So here is Bratati.
Hi, everyone. How many of you found out about this through Esther's email? Was that everybody? Yeah, excellent. We just decided on this about a week ago, and it's not going to be a very technical talk. My objective here is to make you aware of the possibilities and what exactly we're doing right now, and we can have follow-ups on the different streams of work. So our mission is to end education inequality with the help of smartphones. Now, the iPhone was introduced in June of 2007. How many people had 10 years ago, that is in 2010, how many people had a smartphone? So these are early adopters. You guys are the early adopters, right? You're computer science majors. 10 years ago, you're in a different socioeconomic bracket. How many of you are carrying a smartphone today? Anybody who isn't? Okay, excellent. So now what has happened is in these last 13 years, the Chinese and Korean manufacturers have created numerous Android phones that have completely flooded the developing markets. And as of the last 2 years, 18 months to 2 years, particularly in India, there is this new market emerging, which is being called the next $500 million market. So 500 million additional people will be on smartphones in the next few years, in India alone. Now, the most amazing thing is that this means that there'll be young people who may not have access to a toilet in their house, but will have access to a smartphone. And this is amazing, because we are now able to directly access, bypass any bureaucracy, any corruption, any government layer, any corporate, and go directly to this very large base of population and deliver much needed infrastructure, information, education, services that can help them transform their lives without any intermediation. So just as an example of what this looks like, and so I've been kind of thinking about how to help, really, like when we talk about poverty here, or lack of education here, or K12 education needing reform, or healthcare not going to the, to the less privileged segments of society, we are not even getting exposed to the kind of poverty, the kind of lack of infrastructure, the lack of education, the lack of access to healthcare. And those of you, how many of you have grown up in India? Any of you? So one person. And of Indian origin, like parents from India? So two more. So you may have a little bit more idea, but many others also, you have exposure to international communities where it's, the scale of the problem is so vast that you have to apply the best and most scalable business models and technology, emerging technology, to solving the problem. So just as Amazon solves it to make more money, we would like to create, many social entrepreneurs would like to create the framework for solving the social problems of our times. So I wanted to see, okay, well, now we are saying there are millions of people in India who have access to smartphones. So let's meet some of them. So I went in 2018. For the last 20 years, I've been trying to figure out a way to kind of get in and help solve these huge, humongous problems. But only lately I said, okay, well, now smartphones are coming in, let's go. So I went and met these two amazing women in 2018 in this reconnaissance trip to Bihar, which is one of the most impoverished states in India, with a population of 100 million, where the female adult literacy rate is 50%. So if you're a girl child born in Bihar, there's a 1 in 2 chance that as an adult you won't be able to read even road signs, your prescription medication, and so on. Now, of these two women that I met, so I met many people during this because I have friends there. And this lady here, sorry, I don't have a pointer. This lady is Baby Devi. I think that name is a legacy of the colonial era, where you give people Western-sounding names. And this is Nisha Devi. Wonderful, wonderful women. And this is an interaction with them. So Baby Devi, who is the lady on the left in the first picture, actually transcended the odds and completed the matriculation examination, which is 10th grade. So in India, you don't have enough quality assurance across all the schools. So you have boards, the state board or the national boards, education boards that come in and administer exams, much like the GED, but you have to write the exams. It's not optional. The school cannot certify you as having completed 10th grade requirements. So she actually completed the state board in Bihar for 10th grade. So she's a matriculate. So she's really, really bright relative to the rest of the population. And she has been employed by an organization named Jivika, which is a joint venture between the state government of Bihar and the World Bank for the last 12 years that has actually brought millions of women out of poverty through small livelihood type of initiatives. And she's a solar mama. So I was like, okay, you have a smartphone. Let's call you. So I come back to Seattle and I called her. I'm like, okay, Baby Devi. So I called her on WhatsApp. And she lives 10 kilometers, which is 7 miles, outside a small mid-tier city in Bihar. So the line quality was really bad, So we were like yelling, hello, 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 Baby Devi. So we hang up, right? So I'm like, okay, well, the smartphone revolution has happened, but, what does that mean? So I was thinking, and then I said, okay, maybe I record something. So I used my camera and I recorded. I said, hello, and this is all in Hindi. So I said, hello, Baby Devi, this is me. If you can see this, I'm going to append this video in WhatsApp and send it to you. And if you can see this and understand what I'm saying, just send me a thumbs up. So I told her, like in Hindi, like hame thumbs up emoji bhejiye. Like send me the thumbs up emoji. So I hang up. And I'm waiting. Like, did she get it? So immediately I get two thumbs up. And what's more, the reason this picture is so indistinct is because she recorded a video. So within half an hour, I get a video back. And she's not wasting any time. I was asking, how are you? Are you still doing okay? Blah, blah, blah. She has all her merchandise. And she says, hi, I'm Baby Devi. And I am a solar entrepreneur. I have these solar lamps. I have these solar stoves. And they cost this much. And forget about electricity. Forget about traditional power. Just go for solar. We have enough sunlight. It's a cheaper choice in the longer term. So that's Baby Devi. Now, this lady, Nisha Devi, she has a feature phone. She does not have a smartphone yet, but an incredible leader. She was interviewed by a TV channel, and there were two, really, in India, there's a huge social stratification. So there were these two really elite women, and she was on the same talk show, and she completely held her own. And she is a sanitation champion. So remember what I said about, there not being enough toilets, but there being more smartphones. So she is one of those people who's in charge of leading the charge against, going outside for toilet stuff. So install your toilets, make sure that behavior change happens. And she talked so beautifully. She's articulate, a fearless leader, a smiling, charming, courageous person. But at the end of every conversation, she feels obliged to remind me, Didi, hum anpad hai, which means, sister, I'm illiterate. So that's kind of the spectrum of what we are working with. So that's our mission is this. I mean, lately I've become more crisp about it and say it's smartphones, and that's the vehicle of change. And we were sort of thinking, now what? How do we create apps to teach them stuff? And we finally said, okay, let's start with something as simple as video-based instruction, because they don't have access. The missing link is the quality of the teaching staff. So all these, the 90% of this 100 million population lives in rural areas, and even though there is a reasonable government school infrastructure, the teachers, there's very little monitoring about teacher absenteeism, or quality of the teachers is inconsistent. There'll be some schools where there's a fantastic principal and they lead the charge and they have a fantastic team that they make sure they show up, they'll fight the government agencies, they will make sure. And there are other schools where there will be, we are talking about 70,000 schools in this state, and the vast majority of them, the teachers will, even if there's biometric attendance, the teachers will come in, put their thumbprint, get back on their two-wheeler and get out of Dodge. The students show up, there's nobody to teach them, the infrastructure is crumbling. So we said, at least if the textbooks, it's a defined curriculum by a centralized agency run by PhDs, so it's very good, strong curriculum, because overall in India, as you all know, there's a huge focus on education, right? So there's no dearth of high-quality people in a centralized level who can create a very, very good curriculum that's extremely balanced. So we said we'll have that be taught on video and put those videos out on YouTube. So that was step one. And then everyone said, well, whatever courses you create, whether they be for solar entrepreneurship or for health or for children's K-12, you have to also have supplementary content like notes and textbooks and interactive pieces and monitor student engagement. Even though they have the board administered exams, you also need a little bit more kind of measurement of progress and make sure that they're learning through the platform rather than cheating in the exam or so even beyond measuring the outcome of our population versus measurement and all of that. So we implemented Open edX. How many of you have taken courses on edX? Excellent. So edX, because it's a nonprofit and it's jointly owned by Harvard and MIT, they have actually put the code all out in the open source world. And so we implemented Open edX with our branding, with Turn the Bus branding, and we started uploading the textbooks and these videos onto that. So now we'll go into, if you've all had a little bit to eat. So we are doing both. We'll have them on YouTube as well, so as to not create an entry barrier for the poor students. They can just look at it on YouTube app on their smartphones, and then also Open edX. So then the basic questions are, what should we teach, and whom should we teach it to? Who will teach, and how will we reach the students? How will we make the students aware? And then what obstacles will we specifically need to overcome? So we'll do this exercise, because I've only been in this for the last 18 months or so. And now we already have magically formed this community of about 50 people who are starting to attend the weekly calls. They don't all attend at the same time because they're all volunteers, but they're extremely strategic. Either they're business people from my business school, or there's like a chain of business schools that correspond to the same, so the IITs and IIMs. So the IITs is the technology people, and like Arvind Krishna, the new, you guys have heard of IITs? Yeah, okay. So it's like that. And there's a business school equivalent. So the alumni networks have yielded 50 so far of people who are working on the tech side and the business side, respectively, in the last 18 months. But we have been confronting these exact same questions because we are still a very, very new not-for-profit, right? So out of the 50, maybe 5 show up on any week, but then they're working offline as well in the weekly meetings. So the first exercise is what to teach and whom to teach, right? So I'll divide you, so about 5, 6 or 7 in a group, and you like 6 or 7 here, make the case for skills education, so you're group A. Skills education for young adults, 18 to 25, who may or may not have graduated high school, and it's men or women. So it could be things like solar enterprise, it could be retail jobs, other livelihoods, mechanics, car mechanics, appliance repairs. You can teach them that through these edX videos and supplementary content. So that's your charge. And you have to make a case for why we should teach that on a priority basis. And you can take some papers and pass them around. And then the next 6 or 7 here should be group B, which is health education, because infant mortality is still very high. And so this is like childbearing age women, educating them on nutrition, health, how to prevent epidemics, how to make sure their child is adequately hydrated, their own neonatal care and nutrition, sanitation, things like that. Is there enough paper for, you can pass it to the other groups as well. And could you can each take one, yeah? Yeah, and if you feel strongly about one or the other, you can go to that group. And third is K-12 education for children. And I'll give you like 5 or 10 minutes, and I'd like for you guys to either come up and present, or you can just tell me from wherever you are. Now, if you feel passionately about one or the other, you can switch groups if you like. Yeah, and if you feel there's another segment, if there's another segment that you'd also like to talk about targeting, we can, you can mention that as well. I know. Nobody wants you to talk about it. Yeah, I guess my question is like, why is it
say like, well, if you get skills education, can you teach K through 12? Usually, I mean, like kind of if you have K through 12 education, that's kind of what.
So we'll wrap up this exercise. I just wanted you to go through this process. Can one of you from each group, maybe we start with group C, just to vary it up because these guys have had the pressure of understanding it first. Maybe a couple of representatives or one person or a few of you can speak up and talk in favor of K-12 education.
So I'll talk. The argument, one of the arguments for K2 through 12, is that it is the future, and it will change the approach of India to education. Another argument is that, as we see in our society, children adapt very rapidly to technological education, and children love things like cell phones. You really have to beat them virtually to get them out of their hands. So it seems like an easy access point. It seems like it has a lot of impact for the future, although not a lot of immediate impact. And it seems to target a group of people that have, at least in the United States, been more receptive to technology than older adults.
Okay, so what I have is they tend to be early adopters of technology. You can change lives in the longer term. You have access for, it's a future investment in the future, even though it doesn't have an immediate impact. And the target group is very large, right? Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, I think one of the main things that my new friend just mentioned was the, I guess, so you described a major problem with the structures of education in India, and by working on K through 12 education, we could train more teachers and better teachers and do education reform.
Excellent.
I also want to second one of the other points was that educating a new generation of K-12 students can serve as like a social rallying point, because if we see a bunch of students who come out through this online curriculum and they're like, wow, they overcame this poor school system or teacher absenteeism, that's a very compelling case for A and B with older populations, and also continuing K-12 education.
So, great. That's a fantastic set of reasons. Thank you. In 5 minutes, that was awesome. This group B was in charge of making the case for why we should invest in health education for childbearing age women and beyond.
Sure, we all sort of contributed, but I was elected as spokesperson. So we believe that all A, B, and C are pretty important, but the case for B is that if children are not healthy or malnourished or, the worst case, dead, they cannot learn and succeed in their education. And so women are generally, in the current times, like the care providers at the home and the healthcare decision makers, and so in India, and so their knowledge can have a large impact on how these children are set up for success, for pursuing their education. As well, we thought about the 40 and above part where as women grow older, they can become a matriarch in the family and sort of as like, mothers-in-law, they can provide this knowledge to the rest of their family and sort of multiply the result of the education that you provided.
Absolutely. Yeah, so what I heard is that, you have much more foundational problems here than even K-12 education potentially. So if children are not healthy, they're not malnourished, they're not even ready for K-12 education. And because these women, if they are more knowledgeable, like their educated counterpart mothers would be, if we teach them, we in turn equip the next generation for success. And then also as the women get older, they become matriarchs and power wielders in their households, and they can take this forward to the next generation. Great, thank you. And then group A was in charge of making the case for why we should provide skills education for young adults.
So, I guess the main reason why you would want to do this type of education is to help people like jumpstart their careers and kind of set them up on the path for the rest of their adult life. So that part's like the main aspect of why you would want to do this, but it also gives people an opportunity if their K-12 education kind of failed them to still have an impact later on in life and still like be on the path to success and eventually get themselves out of poverty.
Mm-hmm.
You have something to add?
Yeah, and I think kind of just reflecting on like this group in particular of like 1825, I think comparing like time horizons. So like for example, with K-12 education, I think it's like a longer gap towards seeing the effects of your education.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas skills education, the upside is that like it's more practical, trying to be like again targeting towards people who can really benefit from this in the short term.
Mm-hmm.
But we did spend a lot of our time discussing like kind of drawbacks and limitations of the system.
Yeah, this is exactly what I wanted. I wanted people to go through what we went through in the last 12 months or so that we made this decision. And so to recap what you guys said, in case I have missed anything, they still, even though they may have missed the boat on the K-12 education of that quality, they still have an opportunity to have a varied type of livelihood and potentially push themselves and their families out of poverty by acquiring these tertiary skills. They can jumpstart their careers. They're still in a very young stage. And then you can yield more medium-term and short-term benefits rather than having that extremely long time horizon of, like starting K-12. And I think your point about technology savvy also applies to this group. They tend to be early adopters of technology as well. So very good. Thank you so very much. That was incredible thinking. We did go through a lot of this kind of emotional wrangling, and in fact went back and forth, because when I first visited in June of 2018 in this context, I went to the education department. And I had this naive view that now you could have the best of content from the best teachers in their own education department. There are gold medalist teachers out of the 70,000 schools teachers, And so I was telling the education department, why don't we just have the best teachers teach on video and then have the other teachers become teaching assistants and have them in the schools, have these smart TVs in the schools, because the smartphone-centric approach only came to us later because of what we ran into in those initial discussions, So, so there are a lot of problems with that, because there you would actually be, it would be very threatening to the existing incumbent infrastructure, and so it would not be very, very well received. It would not be direct access to the student, and there could be many a slip between the cup and the lip, And there are many other issues, channel conflict and job automation, and are the smart TVs turned on, the last mile monitoring, and all of that. So we eliminated that. And then I loved the baby Devis of the world. They are sort of in both of those segments. They are childbearing moms as well as they're very, very young. These women get married before the legal age for women in India is 18 years of age. They are very often married before that, have children by the age of 18 or 20, and so they are. That was a big deal for me, helping people like her. So I actually like this, like that, and and also love this because absolutely, that is absolutely true. Like if there's the coronavirus going into rural Bihar, I'm not particularly panicked about coronavirus, but I'm just saying, as an example, epidemic prevention, sanitation, these are much more, kind of primal issues. However, after considering all of this, we thought much like, what's your name, ma'am? Verna, that, foundational education. We believe that this, India used to have a past, and particularly the state of Bihar, you can actually be driving on a highway and you see a monument by the side of the road, which is 3,000 years old, 2,000 years old. It's a magnificent ancient civilization, which was a very, very rich land. And it's just that over time, due to different rules, and particularly 200 years of colonialism, that had a deliberate strategy of depriving the rural population of agency, education, and by derivation, access, lack of access to livelihoods, pride in their heritage, self-confidence, self-esteem, all of that. So we felt that foundational education ultimately is more important in terms of higher priority, but like you, we felt all three, all of these and more we can do it. It's just like, what do you put on first priority? And we also felt that instead of going up, typically the NGOs or the nonprofit organizations, they start with the little kids, because K-12 education is such a domino effect. If you don't have the foundations of, third grade, how will you do sixth grade mathematics, for example? But in our case, because of the technology savvy access to smartphones issue, we are actually going top down, 18 and then 16. Those are the two board exams. So that will give us some of that immediacy as well. So if the control group of, like in this state, 1.2 million students write the 12th grade board exams. They're called the intermediate exams. And 3 million write the 10th grade exam. So we're already losing, 2 million write the matriculation, which is 10th grade board exam. So we already lose about 50% in those 2 years. So we are creating curriculum for the 10th grade board and the 12th grade board first. And then we'll go backwards with the resources. So does this make sense? Have you all digested this slide? Yeah. So I just wanted to say what we came up with. And these are the things that you said, Verna. Better targetable market, foundational education, digital savvy of younger folks, life transformation potential. Again, when we delved deep, we went to some of these skills development centers, talked to them as well to try to understand what kind of education courses we could create for apprenticeship and immediate impact on lives. We felt that was just getting ready for transition from bonded labor, I'm sorry to use these terms, bonded labor to servant. Like they would teach them, like they're teaching them things like how to be a nursing attendant or how to be like a very good greeter in a retail store. And there's nothing against it, nothing against it, but by definition, you're not making that digital change. You're sort of reinforcing some of these old patterns where, because I was born in a poor family in a village in Bihar, I'm only fit to be, so to speak, serve as your nurse's attendant rather than aspire for a career in nursing or a career in medicine, So we will do that as well, and especially for the sustainable development part, like really by leapfrogging on these kind of really heavy coal burning kind of, and things like that, like green building, urban development, all of that. Very much have a priority around that, but this is the immediate focus. Now comes to the next question, right? Remember we said what to teach and to whom to teach. So we've somewhat sorted that out in terms of just prioritization. All of the above is the answer, and this one first is the decision we've made. Who will teach and how to reach? That's the second question. So this one we won't do like a discussion group. We will just have people ask. Now, this is a group of people who do not speak the Queen's English or American English or any version thereof. They speak very, very regionalized dialects. A lot of them speak Hindi, but they also have other affiliated languages. And they have a particular way of speaking it. Dipanshu, welcome Dipanshu. He's actually one of our team members who's been working with us. He came to our team through the Democracy Lab hackathon, and he's been a strategic volunteer, tech volunteer for us. I'll mention what exactly we are doing on top of the edX platform, and maybe you can also chime in at that time. So they don't speak the language. They will not find, if I go on, like I was trying to use this, we have this anglicized version of Hindi, like in these elite schools, and if we talk like that, it's, I can be the humblest person, but I come across as someone trying to, like a poser, So the question is, who will teach? K-12. We made the decision it's K-12. And we've also run up against a wall in terms of the education department. So existing teachers are not an option for us. So given these two facts and the fact of the need for the right quality education in the vernacular, who can teach? Any ideas? Just free form. Yes?
What's the wall?
The wall is, if let's say you go to the state of, I don't know, Arkansas, and where there's a big rural population, let's say, and you go to the teachers and say, hey, you know what? You don't have to work so hard anymore. The 10th grade content is really, really hard. We'll get this TV, and the best teacher from New York, I mean, that's the city, the best teacher from New York who knows math, who won the best award for math teacher in 9th grade across the whole nation will teach on the TV, and you just have to kind of stand by. Yeah.
What's the wall between you and the state government on interacting with the teachers?
Yes.
As some background, both Richard and I, Richard had to run, have worked in education in Lucknow, actually.
I
for
see.
a digital study hall. And
Awesome. What's
our
your name?
answer, I'm Curtis.
Okay.
Our answer to this was to find the best teacher in the rural area and bring him or her in to record a lecture
Okay.
with actually students from Lucknow. So the teacher was from the village, the students were from Lucknow. And that worked pretty well. But
And
it
you
did
did a
require-
video recording?
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
And
I
so
wanted
this
to
did
do-
require interacting with that teacher, and what it was the teacher that actually came in, right, and like was motivated, but and you could pay them extra to come and do this recording.
So you went directly to the teacher?
Yeah.
Okay, great. There is, that teacher might, like for example, in my son's public school, the teacher is not authorized to do that. Now in India, they don't honor that, but technically they have that, but if they're in a private school, I don't know. They're not really supposed to do that. Like I grew up in a private school, and yeah.
Not allowed.
Yeah.
And this was like a decade ago now.
Yeah, I understand. And it's possible, but see, we are so visible, right? And we don't see the government as, I'm saying that we have run into that wall because of real reasons, right? Like the Arkansas, New York kind of reason. In actuality, you cannot implement sitting here and creating a digital-only nonprofit. How did I get in front of Baby Devi and Nisha Devi and, and all the children? And you have to work with the government and with field partners, right? And for something that could be a very, very scalable solution, you have to be like overthinking that. You cannot, because if tomorrow that person loses their job, then I have a huge problem, right? My content is essentially illegal. But that was I totally hear you. I mean, I hear you. I want to solve the problem, right? And that seems like a very logical solution, is to get some of these teachers. Maybe they quit. Maybe you guarantee them a job that pays them more, and they just, yeah. Maybe they quit the other job. They quit their government job.
I think we've done a bad thing. For what it's worth. Hopefully they can do both.
Yeah, well, I'm a marketer, so I'd be like, instead of teaching the 50 kids in your class, you'll be teaching 1 million kids across the board. Yeah, well, yeah. But anybody else? So that's one. Existing teachers who we figure out the legality of that.
We're starting at the 10th grade exam time, so that exam language must be standardized.
Yes.
So it seems obvious then that you teach in the standardized language.
Yes.
So you don't have this issue of multiple dialects done in the local fashion. You have one language done in the way the official government does it.
Yes. Now, Bihar, India as a state has many, many official languages. Bihar as a state, India as a nation, and Bihar as a state has several official languages. The vast majority would speak a version of Hindi. So yes, the exam is administered in Hindi, in Maithili, in Urdu, in Bhojpuri. So the same exam with the identical questions based on identical curricula which are translated. But we would get it in all those languages. It's not an issue. We are starting with the biggest one, which is Hindi. But who? It's class 10 or, grade 10 or grade 12 content, so it's pretty advanced, like science, math, and liberal arts. Liberal arts is beautiful. I look at the curriculum and I want to stand up a little straighter, and think of like, wow, just the civics, the political science, it's just beautiful, like understanding the Indian Constitution, and I know we are all struggling with that here. Yeah, go ahead.
The exam.
Very good. Yeah, that was, I thought, a brainwave. So we had last year in March, end of March, they announced the results for the previous year's board exams, and they announced the toppers, what we call the toppers. And in India, there's this obsession about top performing students. So they were interviewed on blah, blah, blah. So I grabbed a hold of them with the help of some maneuvering and figuring out how to get their numbers. And they are 5 minutes? Okay, great. So that's one, the toppers. And in fact, that's what we called it, the toppers as tutors program.
Is there an opportunity to get the best teacher in a town to help teach the toppers how to teach?
Oh, that's the next level of the problem. Absolutely. I'm dealing with that on a day-to-day basis. Absolutely. Because, they teach very well, but they're brilliant. I mean, in the liberal arts stream, grade 12 topper, 500,000 students top rank. 1 out of 500,000, brilliant students. But then they teach like that. They teach you as if they are geniuses, and you are a genius, and you could be, but not everyone of the 1 million are. And many of them have gaps in their previous years, so,
And they are willing to break. This is a person who can do anything, and they're willing to break their educational path to do this?
That's a very good point. Indeed, we've been struggling with that, like for them, because these are people, they actually don't have as many avenues open. Many of them do wind up disillusioned after all that. But yes, they are the highest potential, the ones, and we have been struggling because we want to honor that and let them have their academic focus primary. So we've said not more than 10 hours of content over any period of 2 months. So we say we will not accept more than that. Just because you need money, we pay them, but we don't pay them so much that they get tempted away from their main path. We pay them a fair market wage, maybe a little bit on the generous side, and then we don't accept more than 10 hours in 2 months. So see, you're operationally solving the problem with us, which is awesome. Anybody else? Retired teachers? Yeah? Yes.
Doesn't that require 50 hours of work?
Oh, no, they know this stuff by heart, memorized. They literally will open the book and they'll there were 2 toppers in liberal arts. One of them just chucks the book aside and he'll say, let me tell you what happened after the Second World War. There was this thing called the Cold War between these 2 big blocs. And it's all in pristine Hindi, like really technical Hindi. Shait Yuddha and Diwar, Berlin ka Diwar, and NATO. I was just like, oh my God, I'm learning so much. So the toppers are fantastic, but they have that speed problem, and 10 hours is like maybe 12 hours. We tell them, please don't do that. We don't approve of that level of arrogance. But it's not, we give them 10 hours of video, but my guess is it takes them a maximum of 20 hours, total, like 1 extra hour for every hour that they did. Yeah, in which case also they're compensated well. 20 hours over 2 months. If, I mean, they just show up with the books and they seem to be able to launch into it. So this is the toppers as tutors program. And then the 10 million women among, did I mention that? I mentioned that, right? Oh, okay. So what happened was when we ran into that education thing, the education department conflict of interest, we went to the Department of Rural Development. And there we had more success because there are these self-help groups of women. You guys know about Grameen Bank and the microfinance movement where you formed, women's self-help groups. So we signed a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Rural Development's subsidiary organization named Jivika. And you can look that up, Bihar Jivika, and that's got a huge network, built up a huge network of 10 million moms. And they are the ones that Nisha Devi and Baby Devi, all those people are a part of that network. So we're working around the official infrastructure and going directly to the moms and their children. So here are some photos. Some of the other segments that didn't come out were people who have, like mid-career women who are taking a break from their careers, some of whom are located here, who've stepped up to volunteer to teach. Then retired, I don't have a retired teacher. Like they're retired teachers with excellent, in our generation, we had a lot of focus on English medium education. But the previous generation, there were a lot of people who learned actually in Hindi or learned a lot of Sanskrit. And I think people of Indian origin can attest to that. So really retired people have also emerged as a segment of teachers, which I don't have a picture. These are the toppers. And this is the MOU signing with Jivika. These are some of the Jivika ladies and our pilot students. So we will not go into this one because of time. The third question was, what obstacles will we need to overcome? I think we've sort of gotten into, sort of on a secondary level got into some of these. So how can you help? Everyone can join this coding team. We have a serial entrepreneur here locally who was between selling his previous company and starting his new company. And he was my classmate, actually 1 year senior to me in undergrad in engineering, and many, many years ago. So he's the CTO. He's a volunteer CTO, and he leads various teams at hackathons. I do too sometimes. But so that's how Dipanshu joined us, for example. So you can absolutely help us code. If you're not super technical, you can help us in terms of teaching how to teach, developing lesson plans. Every textbook is also available in English for that 10% of population that actually writes the exam in English. 10 is an estimate. I don't know the exact number, but it's very, very small. And so, people can help us develop lesson plans if you don't want to do technical stuff. But the other things that we are doing on top of the edX platform is we are assuming the student has no teacher. So we are building these AI tools, like the one that won the Microsoft Hack for Good was an AI librarian, basically scraping through all the textbooks, which we got through OCR into a readable format, and scraping them, and also using automated Q&A maker. So do you want to talk a little bit more about those tracks? And the video cleansing and the transcription.
Three major things that we have is a AI chatbot, which is just you, through your Google Assistant or something, you would be able to ask it some questions, which would be if you're, through your Google Assistants, you'd be able to ask like simple questions, say if you're studying like history or something, who was the 7th king of England or something like that.
and there's a search engine that basically scrapes, like it would generate a database-ish thingy for your for all your textbooks, and you'd be able to search like different things with that. And the third thing is just like the content management side of things, so that it's easier for people to upload the videos, and that would go through a pipeline of cleansing the video, creating transcripts for the videos, and having them uploaded to the contents. Those are the three main tech things I think we're doing.
Great. And if you, I thought there were some health department people here as well, but I guess I was, yeah, so all CS, right? So then I won't talk about that, because we were thinking of the life sciences curriculum, and for the 10th grade, we needed some help with that. But any other lessons, if you have interest in that side of things, but I think this group is particularly suited to all the AI ML stuff that we're doing. I don't need that because I've got mine. All of these are very, very tech heavy. The OCR and automatic Q&A generation, the video transcribing, the cleansing, because we are having them do an Uber-like model, right? They sit with the tripod and smartphone and record. There's a ton of ambient noise. So you can do the digital signal processing, like you can see the different noise patterns and weed them out before we have to figure out where in the process flow that goes. But, so the video cleansing, video transcription, auto-generate transcripts in Hindi. There you can work collaboratively. If you yourself don't know Hindi, then there'll be people in the team who know Hindi, and you can keep on refining the quality. And the library and cataloging the content and all of that. So I would love to have any or all of you on the team, and you can talk to me, send me an email. That's the Hack for Good winning team. And Dipanshu was there with another team, and then after that, we're going to win it again this year, right? So that's my contact info. Please get in touch if you want to learn more, if you want to help. And we are very, very respectful of your time constraints. Like I said, out of a group of 50, 5 people typically show up to a meeting, which is perfect. We can't handle more than 5, really, because there's so much progress on some tracks. So typically we are planning for that because it's the quality that counts for us. Okay? Thank you so much.